Welcome to Caribbean Migrant Masculinities. This is a podcast dedicated to exploring the unique experiences, challenges and perspectives of migrant men. The show seeks to provide a platform for men from diverse backgrounds who have migrated to different parts of the Caribbean, addressing their gendered experiences through the lens of migration. The Department of Community Development here on Nevis is celebrating Community Development Month under the theme, Together We Grow, Together We Thrive, Our Community, Our Pride. This podcast is something special, not just a conversation, but a cultural bridge. As we count down to this year's Nevis Multicultural Heritage Festival, we're pausing to reflect on what it truly means to carry culture, identity, history across borders. As part of our activities, it's a highly anticipated Nevis Multicultural Heritage Festival coming up on Saturday, 31st of May 2025, at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park, which begins at 12 p.m. There, we will have representatives from various countries, including, but not limited to, St. Kitts and Nevis, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, St. Lucia, Dominica, the Philippines, Dominican Republic, China, and African countries such as Botswana, Ghana, Cameroon, South Africa, Uganda, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Zambia, and Sierra Leone. This podcast, dubbed Caribbean Migrant Masculinities, is a collaborative effort between the Department of Community Development and the Department of Gender Affairs. We're talking to a panel of men whose lives have been shaped by migration. Men who have learned to walk the line between honouring where they come from and adapted to where they are. We'll explore how they navigate identity conflicts, shifting definitions of masculinity, and the pressure to belong in two places at once. This episode is more than a lead-up to celebration. It's an invitation to understand the lived realities behind the music, the food, the flags, and the colours of our heritage. Because behind every tradition is a story, and today we're going to be telling a few of them. Cultural adaptation and identity conflict, navigating dual identities between the home culture and the new country, and how migrant men balance traditional values with those of the host country, especially in terms of masculinity, is one of the topics we're going to be discussing today. Also, the experience of assimilation and the pressure to conform to gender norms in a new society. We're also going to be discussing engaging migrant men in conversations about social justice, equality, and how they can challenge traditional gender norms. Masculinity, power, and privilege within migrant communities is an interesting topic, and also understanding the intersectionality. So here we're going to be bringing together stories of migrant men advocating for their rights and for the rights of others. Before I introduce the participants today, I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. My name is T. Liebert. I'm a senior practitioner in hypnotherapy and psychotherapy practice, radio presenter, social media influencer, podcaster, and author. I've been residing in Nevis now for 7 years. Originally born in the UK, but I'm now a citizen of Nevis. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce from the left, we have Jack, Eric, and Charles. Just some ground rules. Everybody here is expected to have the right to speak. We appreciate if, when the participants are speaking, that everybody gives them the opportunity to speak. Speak honestly. This has been recorded, and no doubt it will be edited, so if we do make any mistakes, I'm sure they'll be ironed out. So, without any further ado, first question, anybody can answer this. Can you tell us about your journey to Nevis, and where are you from originally, and what brought you here? So who wants to go first?
Okay.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and as a matter of fact, one who has been in Nevis from 2005 till now, that question plays on my mind. I think the best way to put it is to connect it to where I was, or the state in which I was before getting into Nevis. Then it will make the journey to be much appreciated. It almost started in a pessimistic way, but it is something very powerful. I'm originally from Cameroon, where I had completed my university education, graduated also from a Bible school, and was actively involved in youth mentorship and Christian ministry. I was deeply committed to community development and spiritual development. And through that journey, one of my mentors, out of good and nice intention, encouraged me to pursue advanced leadership training in the United States. The opportunity felt like a divine alignment. It was as if all the pieces were falling into place. Then, the place involved collaborating with a pastor's daughter, who was leading the initiative. However, life took an unexpected turn. She became engaged and later married a Nevisian, which naturally shifted the direction of the project to Nevis. In my heart, I still believe, or I thought, Nevis was a place in the United States as I saw it in Miami on the map. So I thought I was heading to the US, especially with the coincidental discovery. So when I arrived, however, reality hit hard. The woman I was to meet had already returned to the US simply because the marriage did not work out. So that was a separation. And now I happen to meet the embittered husband who knows very little about me. And that is a person I came to meet, expecting I was meeting a master's program for leadership. That was the first trauma I ever experienced in my life. And while that occurred, my journey in Nevis, though marked unexpected turn and quiet trauma, it finally became what I call a refining ground. Because I was there, no relative, no one knew me. That is the time you expect empathy. That is the time you expect, all comfort. But it's the time people ask questions like, do you deal with drugs? Can we trust you? I got all those things happening. So how did that journey shape or curve my life? Has it damaged me or has it made me better? The good thing about my journey on Nevis is that it has widened my horizon on awareness, because I can now empathize with anyone that is experiencing similar thing. People are in their place, they don't know you. So they will not be mindful of what is happening to you at that time. So my journey exposes all this. And I believe the further questions that will be coming will touch part of this journey.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Jack. We'll be delving into some of those issues you touched on there during the podcast. We've got limited time at the moment. We've got about 2 hours. So over to you, Eric. If you just tell us basically about your journey to Nevis, keep it brief, and where you're from originally and what brought you to Nevis.
So, 1996, 2006, and it goes on and on in decades. So for 39 years, I've been living here. So 6th of January 1986, after graduating from engineering school, young, never worked, decided that I'm going to undertake some travels and experience. My father passed the same December, so I was kind of left alone, not having to worry about what I'm leaving behind. So I came from Guyana and decided to venture out. Unlike some others, and Jack here, I had people in Nevis who I knew. For those of us who have been here for a while, Major Dunn, he's an old bush pilot who has lived in Nevis for many years. His wife is Zara, and they were living in Jones Estate. So I came down on a humanitarian purpose to help promote the Baha'i religion. Really encouraged me to come out here and become part of the community. And Major and Zara were Baha'is. When I got here, My purpose here was just to spend a few months and engage in the community, get to learn about the islands, and then keep moving. My family has since, brothers and sisters, moved to the United States. I chose not to. I decided I'm going to travel and decide where I chose to live based on what I see and what I like. But when I got here, Major introduced me to a lot of people, including Sim Daniel and Michael Powell, who were the premier, and I believe he was a senior minister. When we engaged and they learned my skill, they asked me if I can stay on, because Nevis needed that level of skill at that point. So the news spread fast. Nevis was a very small place then, smaller than now, as far as people and how the community operate. And the news spread very fast, and I started making connections. It got to the owner of cable TV, and he reached out to me and said, hey, would you come and work for me? We're going to build a cable TV system in Nevis. So I worked with him. I started helping the community, people who had equipment down. My background is electrical and mechanical engineering. I started helping people get equipment running. The postman, Tim, always remind me, his motorcycle was down for 10 years and he couldn't get it fixed, so I got it fixed. So I stayed on, we built the cable TV system, and one thing went on to the next, and to the next, and to the next, and I'm still here, 39 years later. January the 6th next year, I'll be celebrating 40 years in Nevis. And my experience has been very fruitful, rewarding, and I have a very wonderful family and lots of friends. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Eric. Charles.
I have not had such a long experience in Nevis. I came to the Federation in 2009. I'm originally from the island of Grenada. What brought me here? Firstly, I am a police officer. So I came here with the intention of joining the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. That brought me here. Initially, it was my intention to spend 5 years to gain the experience of a different island. I was a young boy in my early 20s, and I said to myself, let me see what it is like in St. Kitts Nevis. Seen it on the map, that is much I knew at that time of the island. So I took the opportunity to come and see what it is like. Since I've been here, it's been a good place, a good experience, and as I said, 2009 to now, that is going 16 years since I've been here. I didn't have the experience of having family or relatives here when I came, so initially it was somewhat lonely. But I guess those questions we will get into in the dialogue, but that is my experience so far.
Okay. All right, Charles, thank you for that. You've all come from different parts of the world. You've got Cameroon, India, Guyana, and Grenada. So what were your first impressions when you arrived on Nevis? I mean, as some of you have already touched on it a little bit. And what surprised you most in terms of the culture? How different was the culture from where you guys originated from?
When I came, Nevis was a different place. To make a phone call, you had to go to Evelyn's drugstore. You had 2 or 3 channels on TV. Electricity was $10 a month and water was free. So that was a shock to me, because where I come from, you pay for everything. And even though times were tough, you find a way to pay your bills. But when I got here, I'm thinking, wow, this is an easy place to live. People were very friendly and homely. I opened my house to my neighbor. We created a gate between our fence, and they had 3 kids, 5 to 10 years old, and they actually lived with me. Never had to lock your house, never have to worry about security. You get home in the afternoon, your house is clean, dishes are washed. And, you know, to me, that was the difference I experienced, a very friendly, open, secured space.
Okay.
Without too much unnecessary influence from the social system that we experience now, social media. We didn't, you know, you connect with people, and that was the difference to me.
Okay, all right. Charles, Jack?
Okay. For me, when I first came to Nevis, and I would say Nevis versus St. Kitts, we're all Caribbean, and we have very similar cultures, experiences, and so forth, especially these smaller islands within the Caribbean. But it was quite different in terms of the pace of things. It definitely felt slower, I must say. So it took a little while for me to get accustomed to the pace of things and how things go here. Again, at that stage, I didn't have any family, so my family, or immediate family, would have been my colleagues at that stage. So it was lonely at times. It's a good place. My experiences in Nevis will be different from the others because of my profession. So I saw a different side of Nevis. I saw the quiet side, as my friend here would have said. He saw the quiet side. I saw that side, and I saw the not so quiet side of Nevis. I saw all the experiences of Nevis, and collectively, it's a good place. I enjoy it. I am still here. Said initially it would have been 5 years, but I realized it's a good place to live. The people are nice.
Okay. All right, Charles. Jack?
Yeah, it's very interesting. When I came to Nevis, I saw persons my same complexion, but they sounded different. So that was really interesting. You know, at times I had to watch, is it a white man talking or a black person? That was one of the first things I took note of. And the other thing which really got my interest was a sense of simplicity, where you find ministers of government walk in the street, greet persons without any bodyguards. They were just free. And I'm like, I wish this happened back home. Yes, I left Cameroon. I don't think I ever happened to see two of the ministers of government with my bare eyes. Always on the media. The president, I've never seen him face to face. But yeah, I was able to see the premier, greet him even on the street, and he says, "How are you doing?" That was like a miracle. Yes, and then still in that part, the cons of what I experienced on it was something that resembles a sense of disrespect, where I still found it very uncomfortable for a 5-year or 6-year-old calling somebody of the 60 by their name, or let's say call a person of honor in society, maybe a pastor or a director. "Hey, Jones. Hey, Peter." Yes, where I'm from, that is gross disrespect. You could be suspended in school. You could be fired in your workplace just for doing that. And it was like a norm. So those were things that really shocked me so much. And also the other part, which my colleague could have mentioned, the sense of security. You could leave your house open, come back, everything is there. That was something, I recall I went to teach once and I forgot the door open. I thought of it all moment, thinking, will I meet everything in the house? But when I went, the key was right there. Everything was on it. So that is something which shocked me in the positive sense of it. So there is a kind of mixture in terms of the surprises. And as time goes on, there are other things that still surprises you, because you tend to realize, though we have similar colors, but there could be a difference on how we interpret things.
Well, if I may, I'll just give you a little bit about my own personal experiences when I first arrived on Nevis. I mean, I've been coming to Nevis since 1989. As I said earlier, both my parents are born on Nevis, and over the years I've been coming here, I've noticed the changes which have happened. For me, most of my experiences have been very positive. The way I've been welcomed by the community, how people of the same surname, we all seem to be one family, and that's one of the things I love about Nevis, the community sense, how everybody's out there looking out for each other. Having lived in countries that got millions of people as part of their population, coming to Nevis was a bit of a culture shock in terms of the number of people here, but I'm the sort of, I don't like comparing places to where I've lived in before. So Nevis has got its own uniqueness. It has its own challenges, which I assume that a lot of us around this table have experienced, which we may touch on later on during the podcast. But in the main, I would say my experience of being here on Nevis has been quite positive. If you had to define masculinity in your own words, what would that mean to you?
To me, masculinity kind of illustrate virtues and qualities of male boys and adults. And in some contexts, it's being seen as a person with a bigger ego, but it's not necessarily so. Masculinity to me simply means those qualities you show, those virtues you have as a male person, whatever they may be.
Okay. As part of your upbringing, do you feel as though you were given enough awareness and knowledge to allow you to understand what being masculine means in today's society?
Not necessarily. I'm 3 boys, 4 girls in a home, the last child of the family. You grow up a little differently than when you are the older ones. Community sort of define your development, and the masculinity aspect of that development was not so prevalent when I was growing up compared to what it is now. Now there's a little more, a word I'm looking for. People look at masculinity more as a prominence, an ego to your maleness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Charles?
Right. To me, masculinity speaks about responsibility. It speaks of strength of character, ethics, those core values which are important, such as resilience. It's not about only being a provider or a protector. You know, the old adage, you have to be man. It's about knowing yourself and caring for the persons around you, guiding your family with the right principles. I am Christian, so I believe in the right principles of God. So masculinity is a lot. To answer a little bit of the question which you asked my friend there, growing up, masculinity wasn't something that was clearly defined in the sense that nobody would say, as a man, you do this, you do that. But you follow the examples which are before you. So those examples would be in your father, grandfather, persons in the community, because it was more closely knit, where your neighbor could scold you and you understood what is expected of you. So in that aspect, I would answer that question.
Okay. So would you say that it was the male relations in your family that actually got you to a point where you could define your own masculinity? Was it your family more than anything else?
Definitely, those were the bedrock. The family is the bedrock of any society. Socialization starts at a young age. So family, yes.
Okay. Jack?
Great. Yes, masculinity to me is more of the expression of traits, behaviors, and values much at times traditionally associated with being a male. However, growing up, one thing I endorse greatly for my culture is an intentional act to groom a male to become a man. My late dad of blessed memory, Captain John Goomba, from the age of 6, he made it known to me to be a boy or a male is by birth, but to be a man is by choice. And he says there are persons at the age of 30 who are men, and there are people at the age of 60s who are still boys. So from the age of 6, that demarcation, that clarity was already instilled in us to understand that growing up, you are born a male, but you have to choose to become a man. And the word man, I think that is what makes the demarcation, brings in the maturity of what, when we talk of masculinity, is how much the male has evolved to manhood, in bracket, maturity in terms of values that governs that, not necessarily having a biological male structure. So that was heavily embedded in us from a child growing up.
So it seems like a lot of our definitions would have come from our early upbringing, from childhood. We maybe got influenced by male members of our family. I mean, my own experience of masculinity is based on looking at the relationship between my mother and father. I mean, there were some clear definitions of masculinity meant for me. For me, it was a case of my dad going out to work and my mum staying in the house to do all the household chores. And in terms of things such as football, which is a sport that I'm really interested in and played at a very high level, we look at the differences between the males who are predominantly the ones who play football, and just recently, I would say in the last 10, 20 years or so, women have made more of an emergence within that field. So it's interesting to hear how we all have slightly different definitions of what it means to be a male in today's society. I touched on cultural adaptation earlier, and we all have different traditional values and norms from the countries we were born in and resided in for large parts of our lives. I mean, can you share any experiences where your traditional values have actually clashed with the norms of your new environment living here on Nevis? Who wants to start first?
The word clash is
Everywhere.
it's kind of derailing me a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But I want to share some experiences. Coming to a small environment like Nevis, where everybody knows each other, unlike coming from an environment where you belong to your village, and that's it, probably a few streets back and forth. So that was one traditional cultural experience I've had, which, in my opinion, was taking me back a little bit, you know. Anybody seen you, they know your name. I'm not sure it's a clash, it's more of a positive clash.
Okay.
So the smallness of the place, the food, and the single religious environment was different as well. Didn't have the opportunity to visit other people, churches, and participate in their beliefs.
I mean, when you've explained to people that you're from the Baha'i religion,
Yeah.
I mean, what sort of response have you had from people?
Major and Zara has been, you know, they were here for a few years and they've started to introduce it, but it was still new and people didn't know what it was. So it took some explanation as to what it is. And coming from a multicultural background, you know, in a Hindu home with Muslim family and friends and Baha'is and Christianity as part of your whole family, your whole nuclear family and extended family is built up around multiple religions and multiple races and cultures. So it made it easy for me to assimilate into this environment and trying to work with people to try to make them understand what the belief is all about.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Jack? You've got a religious background or some connection with religion? Is that what you said earlier?
Yes, I'm a Christian.
Okay. So what about you? I mean, how would you describe your experience of...
With the cultural clash, first of all, I'm going to look at it briefly in terms of diverse layers. First, culturally, I would have already touched one when referring to the surprises. The difference in terms of value, I realize back home as opposed to Nevis, I've seen how, for instance, heroes are considered. There seems to be a clash in terms of one culture being critical while the other being heavily appreciative. Yes, what I would have picked up on Nevis, it is easier to pick up what is wrong as opposed to emphasize and celebrate what went well. In every field, whether it's in the church, whether it's in the society. When I came, I read about Nevis being the most peaceful island in the world. I'm like, wow. So I thought that was going to put a monument where every year they celebrate that award. But it wasn't mentioned. Nevisians did not even know that they had such. But everyone could tell me what could be said negative about something, someone. And I realized it flows all through. It's like a pattern. So that is a clash of culture, which in a key sense, it may even have some repercussions where persons may even be afraid to pursue excellence. Because in that journey, instead of society propelling you, they remind you of all the shortcomings and even tell you why you should stop pursuing that. On the other hand, where we're from, they only need to know one good trait you have, and they encourage it until it bypasses all the shortcomings. Yes, so that is a key clash I would have seen in culture. Then the other part of clash I would have witnessed, it has to do with the gesture of deep empathy. I don't know how to put it in soft words, but there seems to be a high sense of passivity on things where you expect a deeper consideration and a long-term follow-up. For instance, the Christina Memorial, which is being celebrated every August, we have experienced something in Cameroon called the event of Lake Nyos disaster, where a strange gas just came up from a lake, and everyone who inhaled it died. So an entire village was wiped out by that. There are still conspiracy theories around it. Until date, we don't only celebrate that, but anyone from that area who would have been maybe a grandchild, a great-grandchild, there is consciousness of their psychosocial development, consciously. Yes, but if we meet some of the victims of the Christina, how much has the society really followed up that with them? So looking at it, you don't really see that depth of conscious empathy. It may just come briefly and it is wiped off along the way. So I see that difference in culture. Then thirdly, another clash, of course, is recognitions of titles. I call it simplicity, yes, but back home, a director cannot get in a place and you call them by the name. It's a crime. You have to call Mr. or Doctor. You can't say, Philip, come here. Yes, so which means if that kind of mentality comes, everyone will be considered a criminal just for something which is a norm in that place. So for now, those are the few I'll pick up on.
I mean, in terms of your dialect and the way you speak, I mean, have you had any issues? Has anyone ever come up to you and asked you specifically about where you come from?
When I came, that was very interesting. At first, it was a little intimidating to a point where if I go to a supermarket, I become a dumb and I just say, yeah, because once you say a word, even in gathering, the moment you ask a question before they answer, say, where you come from? Who you be? You just feel always single pinpointed because of the accent. And some, at first, when you come, they make fun of it. Now I take it as fun, but at that time, it was kind of annoying. When you talk, they mimic you in a funny, sarcastic way. Yeah, so that was something, but for now, it's much fun.
Thanks for the little chuckle at the end. I share some similar sentiment. For me, when I first came here, there was not much of a cultural clash. Again, I am from the Caribbean, we're similar cultures, but we still have differentiations because we're different people. For example, the diversity of cultures was a shock to me with regards to the different Caribbean islands, the Spanish nationals who live in Nevis. That was definitely a shock to me because in Grenada, we don't have that. We don't have such a gross diversity. It's primarily Grenadans and Trinidadians and other countries. So that was a shock to me. culture was okay. In regards to the accent, which was last mentioned, that became a headache. That became a headache. Because just as you said, from the moment you open your mouth, all eyes are on you. And those persons, I guess, were genuinely curious because it's a small society where everybody knows everybody. So when you see something that is foreign, you're curious as to who are you, where are you from. But being asked the same question 15 times in one day becomes a chore. Over the time, persons they got to know you, okay, they know you, so they've accepted you. However, it's not prevalent as before. But in the past, there was a clear demarcation in regards to persons who were foreign nationals. You know, sometimes you would have gotten slurs, you know, unfriendly slurs, you know, you bang water, come here, all these things. Let's be real about it. Those things were said in the past. I'm not hearing any complaints about it. In present, you know, I think the society has matured and is more welcoming to non-nationals. So I have definitely seen that change. Culturally, it is similar.
Okay. I mean, in my experience, I mean, as you can hear, I've got an English accent as well, quite pronounced. I mean, I've had my issues with the way I speak as well. First thing I get is, well, you're from England. So I have to go through that, navigate all that, having to explain where I came from. And to fit in and assimilate into the society, I'm conscious that I'm having to speak Nevisian, but I'm not always comfortable in speaking that way because I lived in the UK for maybe 57, 58 years. And when my mum was alive, she used to say to me, stop talking like that, you're so stupid. So that's one of the reasons I didn't really feel comfortable about speaking with Nevisian dialects. But over the time I've been here, I get called English. I feel sometimes there's low-level amount of discrimination because of the way I speak. I've had people say to me some things such as, who are you people think I be coming down here trying to teach us what to do? So, and that brings up all manner of reasons and understandings about why people make such comments. But again, as some of you touched on earlier, with it being a small community, it may be seen as a case of, although you've got the same colour skin as us, you may not always be seen as being accepted into our society because of the way you speak and the way you hold yourself and all those other things as well. Okay, so thank you for sharing that.
If you may add, you said something about assimilation, which brought back a memory to me. A couple of years ago, I went home. I was by a barbecue stall, ordering a chicken. Then a local back home, Grenada, came up to me and asked me, man, where are you from? You know, this is a Grenadian asking a Grenadian, where are you from? And that is because my accent has changed by me trying to assimilate. Yeah. Because if I were to speak in my true dialect, though I'm speaking English, a lot of times person will ask you, what you say? What I mean? So yes, there's a level of assimilation if you want to be understood within society.
And you guys are from larger countries as well. I mean, why do you think that is? Why do you think people can identify you as being from somewhere different? And why do you think that some of the comments they make, why do you think they make those comments? Is it because the smallness of the island, or do you think it's the way they've been brought up culturally, within a family unit? I mean, what are your main views on that?
Well, the difference between micro and mega, talking in terms of sizes. Okay, for instance, Cameroon, when I was in Cameroon, it was about 20 million people. Just, I recall I was the acting PRO for Limbe Urban Council. The council alone, I was dealing with 4 million people. So when you now deal with macro, the difference with your focus is very clear than when you deal with micro. Talking about the size, in Nevis is very small, you can really see everybody.
It's more intensified.
Yes, so it goes to everything as a symbol. So it now makes attention to be on things which maybe you never considered in a broader sense. But right there, that becomes the focus. So at times you can throw off a person. For instance, you walk in the street and you may be amazed that men will take note of what you are wearing. How did that happen? How will a man say, boy, you're not dressed good, you know? It will be hard to find that in the bigger sense because the bigger place hustle for something different. It doesn't really have the time to see what you wear, who you are talking to, who you visited the other day is not part of the norm. But a smaller place can unconsciously just become caught up with those. So it now makes, you know, that particular mix-up to take place.
Okay. All right.
I would share similar sentiments, though my population is not in the millions, just a little over 100,000, but same understanding. Sense that the size and the number of persons, you don't have time to focus on every other person you see. But you understand within yourself that persons live in different parts of the country. So if you see them, okay, just another person. It's quite insignificant. But here, because it is small and a lot of persons are related, when you see something strange, it draws your attention immediately. And of course, human nature, you want to inquire, what is this, what is going on?
Yeah, I think the dynamics of size create curiosity among people. I was fortunate to come to Nevis during the age of the formative age, when Nevis was beginning to grow. And I stood out simply because of I'm different. I had a full head of hair, and you could tell that.
I think we all did back in the day.
Yes, you can tell that. So I had a different experience, simply because of the time that I arrived in Nevis.
Okay.
Well, I call that the golden age.
All right.
Yes.
Is it still golden?
I'll reserve the comments. It's evolving into a different type of gold, maybe different carat of gold.
All right.
Still gold, but different carat.
Okay. A better gold. More improved gold.
A different gold.
Different gold. Okay.
Yes.
All
It
right.
depends what your values are.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, this podcast is about migration, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And has migration changed your sense of home? I mean, do you consider this as being your home now, as opposed to where you were born originally?
It changed for me because I've never lived in a rented place. We grew up owning our own place. So home was where family is, extended family, and the village that raised you. Coming here as a single person, all that changed. You know, you are fending for yourself. You are trying to establish yourself in the community. You have to live in someone else's home. And you're trying to figure out that sense of belonging.
Yes.
I mean, how do I assimilate into this society and make this home if this is going to be home? So there were some drastic measures had to be taken, internally and externally, to prepare yourself for what you're going to do, what I'm going to do if Nevis is going to become my home. I was lucky to meet a lot of really good people. I was lucky to meet my wife, who really drove that this need to own something and to grow and develop and make Nevis your home. So to me, that was the experience of being in this home away from home.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Charles?
With me, I have had struggles, I wouldn't lie, about calling Nevis home. I own property here, I live here, but at the end of the day, home is supposed to be where your family is, where you have that connection, where your friends who know you from pitching marble days, because that's what I knew. And I've been here over 15 years, going 16 years, and as I said, I still struggle with calling it home. It's a good place, you know. I think it's the yearning sometimes of seeing my people that causes that struggle, that feeling them on a constant basis. Yes, you can take vacation and go home, but yeah, that's my biggest struggle. Home is where the heart is, it says.
Okay.
So wherever you are, you make it comfortable. And I have done that over the years. So that has eased that struggle, that anxiety, that longing, that yearning. You know, that eases that.
What more do you think you could do to actually get to a stage where you can actually call this home, or do you not think that that will ever happen?
Well, maybe like my friend here, when he had some numbers to the period of being here, I have not been here for very, very long. You know, so the longer you stay, the more you adapt, the more you become accustomed to the culture. Because I have seen a change culturally in Nevis over the years, and I have become accustomed and actually accepted. You know, so yes, as time go by, I see it more so as my home. Hence I said, I now own property here. So that's the reason why. Because I believe that, yes, it's a good place to live.
Okay. So it's more about the time.
The time, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, you have to pass the infancy stage, and then you start to accept as time goes by.
Okay. All right. What about you, Jack?
Okay, it has been a metamorphosis to, let's use an analogy, considering a house to a home. So Nevis in the initial would have been almost like a house, meaning just like what he would have said, you left family, left everyone, then you found yourself in a place where you have to take a track outside every comfort zone. And it is almost looking like an unending journey. However, there is something I am trying to discover. Words cannot pinpoint, which is a charm that seems to be on Nevis to make you love it as a home. I can't prove it scientifically or bringing out the point, because everything would have occurred. I would have experienced, as I talk of my journey, you would have realized that during the trauma phase, you feel like you are in the darkest part in the world. Nobody understands you. You don't know the way forward. But looking at how Nevis is operationalized, I think forever it will have that sense of making its place home, irregardless of things that you may not agree with. I recall when my dad passed, we had to do wakekeeping at New York. I was there with family. Half of my family is US citizens. We were there. While I was there, I was missing Nevis. So I said, okay, let me get to Cameroon. And when we went to Cameroon, of course, that is where the love flows. Every relative, you feel like a king. After a few days, I started missing Nevis, and I said, something is wrong. I'm speaking it in a good way. Yeah, and I just could not wait to come back to Nevis. I say, is it because I've been there for too long? It's much more than that. But Nevis has a charm that when I discover, I'll write a book about it. That makes it home. As I said, there is a difference between a house and a home. House means you have everything in, but home means you belong. So you face differences, there are attitudes. In every place you have the good, the bad, the ugly. There are those which, even though I've been here for more than 10 years plus, they still tell you you're not from here. You face those, but you face the loving persons. It's just, I don't know if one is permitted to mention names, because there are some people I will always be grateful for. If I could be permitted, I could use this opportunity to thank them openly. They have been there for me from day one to this day. And who knows if they are the ones behind my subconscious mind that makes me say, I'm home this day. So I love the aspect of that question. So I would say there is a charm that makes it home for me.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for that. I mean, everyone seems to have a different definition, understanding of what home is. I mean, for me personally, as I explained earlier, for someone who's been coming to Nevis now since 1989, and I'm someone who's of the belief that, I mean, I've moved around 33, 34 times in my life, but every place I've lived, I've considered it as being my home. Yeah, because for me, as long as I've always told myself, as long as I'm happy within myself, it doesn't really matter where I live.
Right.
Because the happiness and the feeling of home starts with me. It starts internally. Obviously, there's going to be some external factors as well, which are beyond my control, which actually determine what my home means to me. So it starts with me internally. As long as I'm happy within myself about where I'm living, then I can make any place my home. But it's interesting that we all have different views on how we would define how migration has affected our sense of home. Yeah? Would you agree?
Yep.
Okay. We've all touched on some of the challenges we've had living on Nevis, and we've all kind of had different lengths of time, ranging from 40 years next year, 16 years. Have you ever experienced any sense of being stereotyped or discriminated against in ways tied to your masculinity or your nationality?
Back in the 80s, Guyana was considered a very poor country, not properly governed, not properly managed, and people were leaving in droves. My only sense of stereotype would have been coming from there, and as really, why do you want to be here? And but it was not severe to a point where it affected me in any way. So I will say I experienced very little of that.
Okay. What about people within your community? I mean, have you ever had discussions, conversations with people who are from Guyana who may have experienced?
I may have been the first back then, so
Okay.
I had to assimilate into the local community. And I lived, after I moved from Jones Estate, I lived in Cotton Ground, which made it very easy to assimilate because Cotton Ground is considered one of the true villages of Nevis back then. And people, were different. So for me, assimilating in that, I've already gotten to know how Nevis is by the time I moved to Cotton Ground. So it was not much of a challenge. And then started working, in the field and meeting more people. And migration started. There was very little migration back then. Development brought migration, and migration, brought different cultures. So, I experienced very little, if any at all.
And because of the length of time you've been here, Eric, I mean, do you get people within the Guyanese community, do they come to you and respect you as someone who's been here quite a while, someone who's able to understand some of the subtle nuances that occur?
Very few people call me by my first name outright. There's always a mist in front of it. And I think that's a sense of respect. I lived a few years in Grenada. And in Grenada, they call you Mr. Eric. They call you by Mr. than your first name. My brother could attest to that. They never call you Mr. Singh. Here, I am called Mr. Singh. That's a sense of respect. In Nevis, there's a Guyanese association that at one time I was the chairman of that group. There's church communities that Vish connects with. There are religious communities that I'm connected with. There are social groups. And they're just people in general who will want to have a conversation. Sometimes when there are challenges, how do you navigate through it? What will be the route you could take with the least resistance to successfully accomplish what I want? So I have had a lot of interactions, and I still do. And I try to make it a point to stay connected with that group, because at the end of the day, You know, we still have our what we say our navel string tied to where we were born.
Okay.
And there's still some connection, may not be entirely a high percentage, but there's a percentage there. So you want to connect with your people still.
Okay.
And for me, I still have to be sensitive that my family is a multicultural family, so I have to connect both ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say it's more about your nationality rather than you as a male? You've had more...
Yes, it's more of a national thing than a male.
Yeah, okay. Jack?
Okay. Yes, out of experience, diverse form of, I would say, stereotype and to some extent, even discrimination. Not from all, but is experienced though. First would have been the fact that you're not from here. As I would have said, I came to Nevis 8th of March, 8 p.m., 2005. That long, persons who I arrived before they were born. Mind you, I was in Nevis before they were even born because they are not up to 20. And I've been here for like 20 years. They will still tell you are not from here. And I say, I knew Nevis before you were in your mother's womb. Right? That stereotype flows. And unfortunately, we are from a place where xenophobia is a very serious concern. That is why we all would have fought apartheid in South Africa. All the African nations combined to fight that. So when you face xenophobia from persons of similar color, it's a very heavy pain to a person from where I'm from. And that always comes out like a norm. I think it's something, if there is a way to address it, let it be addressed at a very serious level to eradicate that, because it goes like habits. But that is really wrong. Xenophobia is just not acceptable, not even in the Constitution, even in jokes or in seriousness. And another thing that one would have witnessed is idiosyncrasies. As someone would say, once they see you of the Asian origin, you are automatically considered to be a computer genius. Once they see you an African, you are almost considered one. Has he even been to school? So, I mean, I came with wealth of knowledge. Graduated, I mean, with all that, because we have that from how we were groomed as boys to be leaders. So you come with all of that, and you're talking with persons who are not trained in that area, but because of your origin, it's always down look, and you witness how they try to receive it from another complexion. Same thing. Yes, so there, it makes stereotype very inevitable. Yes, so those are some of the things which I feel heavily uncomfortable with in Nevis. And the fact that they are kind of continuous. It's not a one-time thing, but something that happens in diverse occurrences. So on my end, that's where I stand on for that.
I mean, what sort of strategies do you put in place to allow you to handle that more effectively?
Okay, at first, when such occurs, you have, it triggers, it triggers a negative feeling within you. But what I had to do first was to build my resilience on how I will approach it. So the first thing is to be consistent with your ideology or with what you are putting. And the second thing is to build a sense of empathy, to put yourself in the person's place. Do they know more about me? Like the first time someone saw me driving the vehicle, he said, "How come you're driving? You're from Africa." And I asked, "Why? You all ride on donkeys and you live in trees." And this was a walking lady. So you are mindful of the fact that a little education has to come in, so patience flows from your end. And you just maintain consistency, the opportunity like this, you bring it out. At times, persons get offended when you touch such, but that's the only way to help. Bring it to light and say such an approach is not good. Then after a while, you'll find things adjusting gradually, not 100%, but it will not be where it was before.
Okay. All right, thank you for that, Jack. What about you, Charles?
Okay, my stereotype or discrimination, similar. Again, we all face very similar traits, more so with what Jack said, you know. When we are Caribbean, firstly, Nevis, Grenada, we are Caribbean. But when we came here, I believe there was a concept that we were here to take from the country. You know, take from the country rather than to help build it. Because I guess persons were concerned about allegiances, you know, that issue became a question. But in terms of stereotype, I have not seen much other than the usual. When you open your mouth, they're going to ask you where you're from, and that creates a debate as to why you're here. You know, why are you here? What you want from here? You know, but we're only here to help to build, you know, to make it a home. So, basically that's...
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I mean, in terms of my own experiences, again, having been born and raised in the UK, somewhere I lived for 58 years, living in a country where I was seen as a minority because of the colour of my skin. I guess the biggest change I found moving to Nevis is that I didn't have to navigate those challenges of walking down the street and having people who are the same colour skin as me looking at me and being treated differently by people who worked in certain government agencies like the police service, you know, being arrested on times for no other reason but the colour of my skin. So relocating to Nevis, I didn't have to navigate all those sort of challenges. And it's very interesting what you said, Jack, about the micro and macro influences that exist on an island such as Nevis, which is, as we all know, is a particularly small island, so there's going to be more, it's going to be more intense in terms of the level of understanding of people from different countries, different backgrounds within Nevis, because they may not have that similar lived experience. So I think for me anyway, it's important for people from different islands to move around, to migrate, and as you said, Charles, different experiences, you could bring them into society to, again, raise awareness, knowledge, educate, and give people the opportunity to find out more about these people who they may feel a little bit threatened by, and just make them aware that there's no need for that sort of reaction to people of difference. In terms of your power as an individual, as a man, do you feel as though you've lost or gained power in your identity as a man through migration?
I believe that I have gained power within my identity and myself because I'm not home. So I am more kin to things of home than when I was home. I am more of a patriot being here because I feel a longing for what I do not have at my fingertips. So I've gained a lot. It allows me to appreciate my family, as I mentioned earlier, my friends, you know, appreciate people more. It has allowed me to become more understanding as well to persons who are foreign from here within my profession. You know, so I have gained a lot, I would say, from my migration.
Okay. Do you want to give some examples of how you feel as though you've gained a lot? I mean, are there any sort of differences, main differences?
Yes, I would say when it comes to diversion, yes, differences of persons of character. Being here, you face persons of different, music Spanish nationals, for example. You know, we have a lot of those here, and I've become to understand with language barriers as well. You know, I've gained a lot of understanding with that. Those are the things I never faced before. But coming here, because of my migration, I am more empathetic to persons who are different from me. Whether that difference is complexion, way they speak, or their preferences, whatever that may be. You know, I have learned to be more empathetic.
Is that because you've had a lived experience yourself? Have you kind of had that experience so you
It's
have
so-
that level of empathy for
It's
that
solely
person?
because of my profession.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am in an area where I have to understand diversity. It's a must. So that pushes me to understand people
Right.
and of course treat people fairly, irregardless of their background.
Okay. So if it wasn't for your profession, do you think you would still have those qualities?
Some of it is ingrained in me. You know, the profession doesn't make the man,
Right.
but it points you in a certain direction. So the idea of understanding is something that is a part of me.
All right. Eric?
I've both gained and lost. I'll go with the lost first. So, coming from Ghana back in the 80s, sometimes you're looked down upon. And you really have to establish yourself, your masculinity. So, on the nationality side, I believe I lost a little bit of that. But I gained more power than what I lost, simply because I'm coming from a village into a country. And if you equate the two, your village becomes a country, and a country where you have recognition, respect, and you stand out. So that naturally brings a sense of power to you as a male, to me, rather, as a male, rather than being just another male in a village.
Okay.
So here I stood out because of my race, my attitude, and probably my general skills, my profession, my contribution. So I gained power from those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you think you've had to re-establish yourself as someone seen as like a welcoming member of the community? I mean, what kind of attributes do you think you've had to acquire over the years that you've been here?
I find that if you share common respect and you treat people the way you want to be treated, and I learned about the golden rule years later, even though we were practicing it way earlier. And if you establish that relationship with people, people allow you to gain that power. You may not be able to get it on your own because you're a one man among yourself, but if you allow people to give you that power and you take that and you use it properly, people will gather around you, they will respect you, they will want you to be part of their lives. And back in the 80s, I can tell you, Nevis was a really friendly, nice, welcoming place for those who have been here or who has been coming here, who has lived here for any period of time. Yeah.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, my son, who is 30 years old now, I will get a call from somebody from Butler's. Hey, I saw your son in town today. Didn't he go to school? How do you compare that? You know?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Jack?
Okay, that's an interesting question. For me, it is heavily on gain, interestingly. Yeah, because situations I would have gone through coming to Nevis, it did something. It set a pace for me to put what I've learned into practice. It broke out every comfort zone like a butterfly coming out from the cocoon, you know, during the metamorphosis phase. I saw now a case where what I've known as principle, what has been defined to me as man, as I would have earlier mentioned, was giving an open book to rewrite a script of me. Yes, had I been home, truth be told, by this time, I might have been a little spoiled brat because everything was there. Right through to university, I was not even permitted to work or to do anything. University was paid, house, hosted, everything was filled to the full. And all I had to do was just to acquire knowledge, acquire knowledge, acquire knowledge. But I came to a place, being a man, you now have to demonstrate. You now have to live that knowledge. So Nevis literally helped me in my mistakes, in my success, to develop and become the man I should be. And it empowered me, trusted me, even in the status quo of field, made me a deputy director, did everything that I can look back and say, Nevis, thank you.
And has that been easy for you? Has that been an easy journey?
It has not been an easy journey, but all of that was in the making to shape the manhood in me. Just like you go to the gym to develop muscles, it's not easy lifting up those weights, but that same weight is what shapes you. So I have turned every aspect of my journey in Nevis like a gym, bringing out the manhood in me. So that's why for this question, I can say 100% it has helped to put me in the position to gain masculinity.
Okay. I mean, what I'm hearing is that you've all kind of built up some level of resilience since you've been here.
Very, very. Every time I watch myself and say, how did you make it? How did it happen? Yes, so that resilience, trust me, I give thanks to God because things which would have broken me apart brought me in. And one way of resilience is to be able to look at the situation without associating it with bitterness and resentment, but seeing it as, even though this wasn't a good thing, it came for my good. I can say I find myself building in that kind of arena as far as Nevis is concerned.
Okay. What about you, Eric? Have you become more resilient, do you think, since you've been here?
I think so. Growing up among the community, you have to stand out as a person, and you have to build that strength and, as I say, the resilience, because you want to maintain that level of integrity that give you that sense of power as well.
Okay. All right. Charles?
Yes, for me, I would say yes. I have gained resilience because a lot of the challenges, especially the challenges of fitting in, if you want to use that word loosely, I never had it before. So to be here for so long and be happy, you have to be mentally tough. You have to know yourself, know your values, and stand on your values. Not saying that one separates themselves from the community or from the society, but you must be grounded. And once you're grounded, Nevis is going to be a paradise for you.
Okay. I mean, from your own personal experiences, why do you think, or can you touch on maybe one or two reasons why do you think people on Nevis treat you differently in terms of your masculinity or even in terms of your status in the society? I mean, can you pinpoint anything? From your own experience?
I think anywhere you go in the world where you have small communities, people are very protective. And they feel you are there to take something away. And naturally there'll be that reaction where, why are you here? What do you want? Not necessarily how can I help you? You as the person now have to figure out, how do I get past that? You have to develop that skill one way or the other, either with experience or with natural talent. And but you have to be able to blend into that society that you consider home.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'll be left out and you'll be left in the cold, and people see you sitting on the road and don't say nothing to you.
I mean, do you consider it as a two-way process? You sharing information about your background and your heritage, and likewise vice versa for people living on Nevis? I mean, do you actually get an opportunity to sit down and speak to people about where you come from? Or do people actually pay an interest in wanting to know more about your background?
People are more interested now than then. Because now the news of Ghana is all over the world. And people want to know, hey, what's going on there? Is it really going to be the next Dubai? Well, I don't know myself, because I'm still learning that whole new trend.
You're not the Prime Minister, are you?
No, but, in years gone by, people are still curious to know, what is it like to come from a different place? Migration was not a big thing in Nevis, years and years ago. People stay at home and one or two might leave. Your parents and maybe their parents, but so people are curious to know what's like out there. What is it like? Well, and they also want to know, how can you come here and manage? How do you manage here? How do you survive? How can you cope? Why do you want to be in this small place with very few opportunities? So those were the questions and the interactions.
Okay. Anyone else? Charles? Jack?
Yes, Erica said everything. We all have the same issue.
Yeah?
Say it again. Okay. Well, yes, on my end, he has touched a very key point about it, and where he says persons will always be like protective. And it's just good to accept that truth sometimes, because I have witnessed situations where you come up with to you, it's a very great vision, and you share with all good intention, knowing this is going to develop this place, is going to take it really far. Then the feedback you get, someone be like, boy, you want everyone to see you end it. And you're like, wait a minute, I just shared a vision. It's not me, it's an idea. Yes, I face a lot of challenge trying to process where that was coming from. Was it ignorance? Was it deliberate? Was it intimidation? What will make something to develop your own place turn you off? Yes, it tortured me for many years. But later on, you realize it has diverse segments. Persons who feel like if he does it, it weakens our recognition. Some, if he does it, what role do we have in it? It starts taking some selfish angle. So to me, mainly, that is where I would have experienced that, a part of my accent. Yes, but that is the part. But to tend to the flip of the coin, there are many, many more broad-minded Nevisians who I will testify they stand behind vision, push it, encourage it to go to the end. Yeah.
And when you say there's more Nevisians like that, why do you think is the main reason? Do you think them having more access to things like social media and be more aware of what's happening in the world, or is it through conversations you have with people? I mean, what do you think are the main?
Yes, if I understand what you've asked, I think it will be worthwhile for Nevisians to expose themselves with thinking or ideology outside Nevis. I'll give an example. For instance, what is happening in the present African, the generation that's going on, we are all connected from North to South Africa. And what are we doing? Trying to now bring a unified success selflessly. And fighting against injustice, corruption, all of that. So if you get the mindset of it, it's nothing about me, myself, and I. It has to do with our success, our well-being, our way forward. Yes, so if that occurs in a place like Nevis, then it's going to be of great help in getting those great ideas.
From my own experience, in terms of my own panel, I always find it interesting for the length of time I've been residing here on Nevis. Never had one person ask me, so as a black person, what's it like living in a country which is predominantly white? No one has ever asked me that question, which I find quite interesting, really. I mean, I understand some of the subtle nuances around that. I feel sometimes in society here on Nevis, people tend not to like to ask questions. I don't fully understand the reason why, but as someone who deals with the workings and the understanding of how people's mind work, I have some understanding of why that might be. Because again, we are probably seen as outsiders to this small island, and for me, one of the best ways to be able to integrate into any society is to be able to find out more about that person's background and be able to share those lived experiences. Because when we do that, we'll probably find out that we have more in common than we would like to think that we have. Yeah?
That's true.
How do you think local gender norms in Nevis shape your interactions with women, children, or people from communities who are heterosexual, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender? I mean, how do you think local gender norms in Nevis shape your interactions with these groups of people? I mean, you're having to deal with people from different backgrounds on a regular basis. I mean,
Yeah. That's a very important question. It's a question I was looking at for the longest while, deciding to myself how best to answer that question. Within my profession, as I said before, you have to be impartial. You must be impartial. The local gender norms has not really influenced me. I am one who will have a lot of ethics within myself. So I treat people fairly, irregardless. I have accepted a lot of the gender norms as being present here. I may not have agreed to everything, but I've accepted as part of the culture, and as such I will navigate accordingly among them.
okay. Eric?
Yeah, so I'll share a little story, and that should cover how I feel about this topic here. As I mentioned earlier, I live next to a family of 3 children. But before I moved to Cotton Ground, I was in Nevis for a while. Not very long, so I get to know people, but not families. When I got to know these 3 children and met their families, I learned something new. School, summer holiday came, and I asked them, so what are you going to do for your summer? This is my first summer with the families and children. They said they're going to their grandmother, their grandfather. Back then, people go and spend time with their grandparents. So they all went, and when they came back, how was it? We talk about it. Oh, I went with my grandfather. She went with her grandfather. I'm thinking, well, how many grandfathers and grandmothers do you really have? I started to learn in that couple of weeks that there are a lot of families who are single mothers, multiple fathers, therefore several grandparents. And I had to come to terms with that gender style of life on the island, because I didn't grow up with that type of family environment. So for me, that was a bit of a cultural shock. I can go back to cultural diversity. But yeah, that was an experience I had as far as what was normal here, as far as male, female, family, extended family. So that was my experience as far as my interaction with women, children, and that community.
Okay.
There was some, as far as queer community, that's a very sensitive topic. And at some point in time, people didn't talk about it, didn't want to expose it. Now it's an open thing. Now it's different. I have known a few people who I've been friendly with and work with who are queer and different, and you have to learn to accept it.
Jack?
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic. And just like what my colleague would have said, looking at both families, and first of all, with this, we have women, children, and also the queer communities. First of all, the community back home, where I'm from, has not accepted the queer community. Yes, institutionally, it is illegal, and the persons who are involved in it will be heavily charged. So now I'm in a place where it has a sense of, not so stringent as it would have been back home. So the first key thing that may surprise us here, my country is so serious about maturity that the law allows you to reach 36 years, not 18, before they can consider you free from your parents. 36. So you can't be disrespectful to your parents up to that time. When I heard of 18, till date, I personally have a serious question on that. Giving an 18-year-old such privilege where they get into crime, the parents still have to come and stand up for them. Because at the age of 18, they are not on their feet. Unless it's only a license to allow people to start having sex. But life is much more than that. So to call yourself all independent at the age of 18 is questionable to me. And that should be a debate to be looked upon. You must be groomed and equipped to be a man or a lady for you to get such a privilege. Yes, so, and we can see the repercussions of such. I've seen mothers at the age of, I saw a child by a lady. She looks very young. And I was told as the grandmother. The key concern, look at the journey of this child. The grandmother, when did the grandmother get the child's mother? How groomed was she as a mother? What value did the mother get as a mother? And now getting a child. So this child is already the second generation of motherlessness, not necessarily the biological producer of the baby. And the trend continues. And who suffers? My brother right at the end, the police officer struggling to bring law and order every day. And we keep talking of the symptoms. Oh, this child did this. Oh, this child is recalcitrant. But look at the structure. And what happens? By the time they reach 18, they are free to start having sex. Yes, I feel extremely uncomfortable with that theory. I don't see it as a sound tool for proper development. That is my personal, humble opinion on it. Yes, so, and if we look at this keenly, the part of women on Nevis, what I love that I've realized is that women are they have a sense. Now I'm talking women, not girls. Remember, girls could be 50, but they are not women. So the mature ones are viewed on Nevis are extremely all-rounded, even if they are single mothers. There is an all-roundedness in them. They know how to manage the home. They know how to, nurture the children for their education. They just have it. I was telling my mother the other day, I said, I admire that sense of wholeness in a woman, a Nevis. So that part, of course, is good. But the sweet part of it, as my colleague would have said, that ability of a mother with 10 children, all the 10 children have different male role model from the same home. We're not talking what led that to happen, but we are just looking at the consequences of that in the psychology of that child growing up. Calling 7 different persons uncle who have no connection with them. And in that case, you even have abuse taking place in them behind the curtain. How does this build a sound family for the tomorrow? Everything that is happening today stems from that core. So if I have to put it regarding my end, put in vis-a-vis, I think an issue is there. I don't know if it started from the time of slavery. Yes, but that pattern is something we should not be encouraged.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting what you said in your last point you just raised about the connection to the enslavement period. I mean, from a therapeutic perspective, I still feel as though there's a lot of inherited intergenerational trauma which affects people living in the Caribbean. And it's a topic which I'm very keen on in terms of raising awareness and being able to communicate some of the issues, some of the traditional things which have been happening and still unresolved. And I think these are quite important for us in today's society to be able to address. From my own personal perspective and experience of living on Nevis, I mean, this is for me having conversations with other males residing on the island. I just find it quite interesting, some of their attitudes that they have towards women. I don't know what the reason why that is, but I suspect there's a lot of generational aspects which have been carried on, and the cycles being continued. Personally, I believe Nevis is a more matriarchal as opposed to a patriarchal society, where women seem to be taking the lead in terms of decisions which are made within the family, whether they be financial, employment, economic, and so on. But my main issue, I guess, is the way that different genders either respect or disrespect other genders, and I believe that's a lot of that has to do with the generational aspects which exist at the moment. In terms of my interactions with women, I tend not to go there because of my own experiences with not all women here on Nevis, but some of them. With children, I'm a swimming instructor, and I help support children to learn how to swim on a weekly basis. And I can see how some of the generational issues have affected them and have been brought into the present. So I do my best to try and empower the young people to give them a different way of thinking as opposed to the way that they've been born and raised in today's society. In terms of the homosexual, lesbian, gay, bisexual community, I've seen how people within those groups have become more open, and I suspect that's because they feel more comfortable about talking about their sexual orientation, which I think is a good thing, because society's changing. People's beliefs, people's attitudes, people's understandings are changing as time progresses. So I think that's a positive thing, and I think we on this panel can agree. We're moving in the right direction in terms of accepting people who are different, and as I said, that's a good thing for us to be moving forward to. What do you want people to understand about the emotional lives of migrant men? I mean, we've touched on a number of subjects here on this podcast, but I want to delve a little bit deeper into the emotional side. As men, we don't always feel comfortable about talking about our emotions, but I'd be grateful if you'd like to share some of the experiences you've had in terms of how people understand you as a migrant and how that's affecting your emotions on a daily basis. So who wants to start? Come on.
Right. You said something initially that as men we don't like to talk about our emotions. Yet you're asking us about them.
I know. It's a bit of a contradictory kind of question, isn't it, really?
Yes, but for me, well, I try to think that I'm emotionally tough, but as any person, I do have challenges, especially being here. Some of them I would have highlighted earlier. What I do to get past those things is knowing myself, introspection. Talk to somebody, find somebody who you can confide in and let them know your problems. Because when you just keep it inside, eventually it becomes a headache for you. It bubbles, and then you have mental issues. So how I deal with it, I talk. I understand the situation as well, because if you do not understand the dynamics of where you are, you'll be lost. You cannot be so rigid that you are unwilling to change. And you said it with your last focus. You're seeing how things are. You're noting that society is changing, but you decide you're going to remain in your bubble and not change. Society is changing. It's going to leave you behind. So I think those are the aspects which allow me to cope with the emotional aspect of it.
Okay. Right.
So the emotion of migrant men will change from whether they are migrating alone or migrating with family. So we have to look at mostly migrating alone, because when you migrate with family, it brings some level of stability because you're bringing your support group with you, and you have a little stronger feeling about where you are when there are issues that you're trying to deal with that affects you emotionally. However, when you're migrating as a single man, it's different. You have to let people understand that why you're there. There are separation issues because you're there alone. You're trying to fit into a new environment, a new community, a new culture. Whether you come to work or you come to local work, at the end of the day, you still have to try to understand where you are. So you want people to understand, why am I here? And the faster you can get people to understand why you're there, and perhaps give them positive reasons why you're there, it helps you emotionally, because now people will start connecting with you. If you don't bring yourself down to a certain level and remain, maybe you are a professional or you are an expert in something, and you feel as if you are better than somebody else, people will see that and they will not connect with you. And it will become, loneliness is going to step in, because people will not connect with you. And emotionally become very difficult to deal with, because you don't have a lot of friends. You're trying to buy friends now. Let's go and have a drink. Come by me, let's have a little barbecue. You start buying friends, and when those friends leave, you get back into your slumber, and you become an emotional wreck. So you want people to understand who you are, why you're there, respect them, let them understand something about your purpose. Don't try to be, what I would say, have too much arrogance in you. Because when you go to a new place, people are looking at you. They feel threatened, they feel challenged. I come from a work environment where I deal with migrant men on a regular basis. Let's leave the women out of this. Migrant men. And those guys who are feeling that they are better than somebody else are the ones who are really having a hard time blending into the island. So I think you have to do those basic things, and it's very simple, very basic. Humble yourself, and let people understand who you are, why you're there, and what you can do to help them grow and develop and contribute to the society.
Okay.
And it's not a difficult thing.
So when you say humble yourself, I suspect you mean you do that, but you don't actually lose your own sense of identity.
You don't lose your identity. You want to maintain your identity because your identity is your strength and your values. And if you can impart some of that to people and they can understand where you're coming from, it becomes, easier for them to connect with you.
Okay.
Yeah. Whether you're French, English, Dutch, regardless of where you're coming from, all human beings, people are people. You want to be able to surround yourself with people. I see people have animals that they're trying to use as emotional, what do you call it?
Blackmail.
Support.
Oh, not blackmail.
A dog doesn't know whether it's in Nevis or France. A dog only knows I'm getting fed, I'm getting a shelter. And it gives you a sense of, I go home and talk to my animals because, just for the fun of it, right? But not to get emotional strength. But you have to connect with people.
Okay.
People are the key. So when you're a migrant man, make sure that you do your research where you're going, understand the people you're going to, try to learn about it. Everything is online now. So when you get there, you're a little bit prepared. Make yourself available to people who wants to connect with you.
Okay. So it sounds like we need to do a certain amount of due diligence and research before.
Yeah. And some humility. Humility is very important. You don't have to go and drink with the guys in the bar every day to be humble, but you can be humble otherwise.
But that must be a challenge as well. I mean, you mentioned that you work with a lot of single men, migrant men. I mean, how do they find it? I mean, do they feel as though they have to lose their sense of identity? Do they feel as though they have to almost give up part of themselves to feel as though they're fitting in?
There's a high percentage of men who don't do that. They figure that, look, I'm here for a short period of time. I'm going to live the way I want to live. I'm going to choose my friends. I could care less whether I fit in or not. They know they'll be here and then they'll be gone. Those people who are going to be here for a long time are the ones who are going to better fit in.
Okay.
And they're the ones who will try very hard to become part of the community.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What about you, Jack?
Yeah. Okay, I'll take it from another angle. Just what you would have asked, what to do, or what you want people to understand about the emotional lives of migrant men. Okay. The most important thing we must know is that the emotional lives of migrant men is that which is beneath the surface resilience. The surface looks so strong, but beneath is made up of complexity, challenges of hope, pressure, identity loss, and even the fear of the unknown. So men always have that fear to open that up and make it known, or even identify with the fact that this is what is really happening with us. So in every case, while on the surface, persons will see, who is that man? What is he doing? What are his achievements? Oh, he works there. He owns that. He got this. That is what society knows. But what is it beneath that man? And that will be very much important because men have three things. Every man has the hero, which they want people to see. But every man fights with two things, the coward and the childishness within. And the emotion on men is weaker in terms of resilience than women. Women are so strong to just cry it out, make all the noise they are fine, but the man buckle it inside and is dying until it leads to hypertension and all kinds of things. So the understanding on the society is the more you find a man, a migrant, looking prominent, just have that empathy that behind that mask, you have hidden tears. So the most important thing is what you said. Every man in that state wants to believe he's understood. He's understood. Once a man is understood, emotional aspect, get much faster in terms of building. Feeling misunderstood at that time is the worst nightmare that could occur. And one thing, most men would not want to stay single or quiet. So we now start indulging or getting local women. So I think that is worth talking. In such a case, please do such a help to a man in that case. Expose his heroism out there and beat his childishness and everything in the bedroom. Settle it that way. And the man will be able to open up and tell you the odd. Unfortunately, we bring the cowardice and everything to the open to a point where when the hero comes out, it can't be seen. So in that way, if we adjust it, it will help the emotional balance of a man.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, my own personal experience is, I mean, I came out as a single man, but at least I was able to, I had family here, so I didn't feel lonely or anything. I still had that support network around me. But for me, as I explained earlier, because I've worked a lot on understanding the minds of how people work, which connects to issues such as about issues around the emotional aspects of our lives. But I've witnessed single men who've come to Nevis where they've expressed an element of loneliness, not feeling accepted in society, which leads to feelings of exclusion, which may lead to other things like, especially if they're trying to connect with their local community, if they feel as though they're having to lose part of their identity to be accepted, okay? And then they start getting into different fields, areas, that they might start consuming alcohol more, start consuming drugs more, which again is something which is going to affect their emotional and physiological well-being. So it's important. I mean, I'm so pleased we got you guys from different parts of the Caribbean and the world here, so you can share your experiences, which again will help to lead to raise awareness and educate people about what it's like in terms of somebody from a different part of the Caribbean, part of the world, coming to live somewhere which they may not be used to, and how it's going to have an impact on their emotional well-being. So thank you for sharing that. What advice would you give to any young migrant male about staying grounded despite the different identity complexities that surround them being somewhere which is totally different to the place where they were born? I mean, have you got any specific areas of advice based on your own experiences and on which you'd like to share?
There'll be natural prejudices. So young migrant men come in. There'll be some level of prejudice, which is a natural thing. I will say that if I have to advise anyone, I will say hold on to your core values. Stay grounded. Give yourself time to understand where you are. Don't rush yourself into trying to become part of the community before you know how this community operates, because that will determine whether you're accepted or rejected. If you rush yourself into a situation where you're not prepared, people might look at you in a manner that, who do you think he is? You know, people think you're forcing yourself on them. Connect with the people if you have similar nationality. Connect with them to get some kind of support group going. You know, so those are advice I'll give someone.
Okay.
Those are very fundamental, basic things. There's nothing scientific about it, but it's people, natural things that people are supposed to do. However, you have people who will migrate and not have the opportunity to get someone to talk to them prior to migration. I recall back in the 80s when my family migrated to the US, that some of them had to go and get speech therapy because the way they speak was not accepted or people couldn't understand. So before they get all the necessary documentation, they have to go get speech therapy. Some of them will go to college and graduate and still not having the ability to speak proper English. So if you're not prepared, you will fail. However, not everybody will have the opportunity to get that encouragement. But if I have the opportunity to do that, that's what I will do.
Okay. All right, thanks for that, Eric. Anyone else?
Right. The advice I would give to young migrant males specifically is to know yourself. Before you even migrate, know yourself. Understand your purpose, why you're going to wherever, and what is the rationale for it. Because sometimes you travel, you migrate, and you get caught up with that society, forgetting that you had a purpose, your reason for being there. Whether it's you get caught up with friends or whatever, you have to know yourself. You have to remember your core values, which was said by Eric. You must. These are fundamental values, and they are expected to carry you throughout your life. So you must remember your purpose, your upbringing. I would say as well, join some sort of group. Join some sort of group that is similar with your belief system. Because you are away from home, you need that feeling of bonding, that feeling of togetherness. It is important. It is very important, because being alone brings out kind of crazy ideas to one. So you need that feeling of togetherness. And I must say a positive group, of course. You know, be a part of something. Do not be afraid to be open with people. Do not feel that everybody is against you. You may have one or two negative experiences with citizens in that country, but do not feel that everybody shares that same view. And sometimes people are just curious. They want to get to know you. And if you do not open yourself to that, you will remain in that box forever. Okay. So you have to be open, you have to be understanding, you have to be respectful, of course. Not say that my culture is better than the other or anything like that. You have to understand that it's different. So you yourself have to be open to understand the cultural values which is shared. And of course, be cautious of how you express yourself with regards to another person's culture. So all in all, respect and come with your open mind.
Okay. Yes. All right, thank you for that, Charles. Jack?
Yes, when it comes to that, the very first thing, remember the fact that where you are going is not your comfort zone. So you are getting to a place you need to know. You need to understand the perception of that place in several things that concerns you. And the next thing before coming, build a deliberate resilience to positive response and positive reaction to the, let's say, cultural shock or differences you will face. Prepare your mind that you will face those and be mindful of how you will react to that. Because your reaction is what will paint as first impression of you in that place. And the next thing you have to do also be extremely consistent, as the other colleagues have said, on your core value, because that is going to build trust. And finally, prepare your mind to learn from that place and also to humbly deliver what you think is good in terms of sharing or exchanging cultural ideas. May it never be from an angle of comparison, just like what he has said. I felt like emphasizing it again to show which part is better than the other. That's a very wrong approach to do, or a very wrong view or lens on how to survive in a place that is not your place of origin. So ensure those things are eradicated. Look at it from all eyes of optimism, regardless of the storm. Just believe you can get over it with the best of attitude.
Okay, thank you for that, Jack. I mean, it's some very important words of advice there. The things that stick out for me, core values, holding on to your core values, stay grounded, come out your comfort zone. Easier said than done, but it's about doing it, being able to understand who you are as a person. And like you said, Charles, try not to take things too personally, because it's not always going to be about us as individuals. It could be the other person as well. They may have a series of underlying issues which they haven't been able to understand, and with that lack of understanding, they don't really know how to deal with them. Another important point made there about support. Again, if you're on your own, it's always going to be important to connect with somebody who can understand you, especially somebody from the place where you were born, and they can give you some emotional support as well in terms of helping you to progress. And mindset, as someone who works with people's minds on a regular basis, I understand the importance of having a strong mindset, having the ability to understand when we think things and how we react to the things that we think about. It's also important to be able to understand when those things do pop into our heads, how we're going to deal with them more effectively. I don't really have much else to add to that in terms of advice. I can share some of the strategies I put in place for people who kind of fit into this group. Again, support, mindset, comfort zone, but the main aspect of that sticks out for me is about being able to understand yourself as a person, and staying resilient as a person, and sticking to your core values as a person, and your belief system and your ethics and morals around those levels of understanding. We've nearly come to the end. I don't think we've got any time for any contributions from the audience. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the 3 participants who took part in this podcast. So thank you to Jack, Eric and Charles for giving up your valuable time, for coming along and sharing some of your most valuable experiences of living here on Nevis. And I just want to thank you all for listening in to the podcast. I hope you found it useful. If you have any comments to make, I would suggest you make them to the Department of Gender Affairs. And before I leave, I just want to remind you all of an event which is taking place on Saturday, May the 31st, out here at the Malcolm Gishar Recreational Park. It's a Nevis Multicultural Heritage Festival, which starts at 12 o'clock. So make sure you attend. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it useful, and thank you very much.